Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me tell you about the only supplements that I use. For nearly 10 years, Bare Performance Nutrition has been on a mission to educate, inspire, and improve the performance of modern-day athletes, adventurers, and warriors through training, nutrition, and supplementation. With effective formulas that work as hard as you do and are third-party tested for prohibited substances, you can get results and reach your full potential with Bare Performance Nutrition. Head to the link in the show notes to go to the website to help me out and to help you out so that we can go one more together. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 70. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very special guest down in Houston, Texas, Kahlil Roth-Folly. Kahlil, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about you, brother?
I'm doing incredible. We connected through one of my favorite human beings, Mike Zacco, who is a previous podcast guest and just one of the best people I know. And when Mike connected me with you, we hopped on the phone and we hit it off. And I said, hey, if you ever want to be on the podcast, let's do it. And you were like, yeah, I'm kind of busy and I got stuff going on and I want to talk about all that. But you hit me up and I was like, let's do it, man. So we're here.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here.
So for people listening who don't know at all who you are, how would you introduce yourself if you had, let's say, a minute to tell the world who Kahlil is?
Yeah, if I had a minute, I mean, that's a loaded question, but I guess I would say I'm a 22-year-old. I'm an online fitness coach at the moment. I'm living in Houston, Texas. And just overall summary about me is I would say I'm relentless. Anything I'm doing, I'm relentless. And yeah.
Dude, that's such a great word. So take me back. I'm going to give you more than a minute, by the way. I put you on the spot. Take me back to childhood Kahlil. What was he like? How did he get into fitness in general in the first place? And then how did he get into fitness coaching and where you are right now?
Definitely. So childhood me started off, I'm from a small town in Missouri, a small college town, and grew up there, born and raised. I did everything that normal kids do. I played sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, pretty much everything except for football. And my love for sports kind of led to my passion for fitness. Once I stopped playing, I needed some way to stay active, some way to like keep my body moving. And that's where I kind of found the gym, fell in love with the gym. Along with also just like, being a teenager and wanting to look good, have that beach body, I guess. And that kind of pushed me to all the way through college or like starting college. And at that point, probably like 2-3 years into my own fitness journey, I had developed a pretty good physique, pretty good transformation compared to where I started. Everyone was asking for the answers. Like, Kahlil, like how'd you do it, man? Like what's the secret? What's the key? Of course, like as we all know, like there's no secret, there's no key. But I started helping just close friends, working with a few, I call them like passion projects, just few people for free, and getting them transformations. And I was like, okay, like I can, I did it for myself. That's cool. But actually be doing it for someone else is a totally different feeling. So then I got certified from that point on, started taking clients. So like, I think I started off with like $4 an hour in person, just like
what?
Dirt cheap. And worked my way up to like, or what I thought was working my way up to like actually getting paid to like $25 an hour. I was making like, I mean, I don't want to get into like the numbers or anything, but I was still in college, helping like, I think I was working like 15 clients at the time. Plus I don't know if you have any.
Oh, you could, dude, the first guest I had on, Sam, And if he's listening, he knows
Yeah.
I think he dropped an F bomb in the first 30 seconds. So you're good.
Yeah. Well, I was busting my ass, and barely having anything to show for it. Still like a broke college student, right? Working with clients in pretty much all my free time. If I wasn't training myself. And that kind of led me to COVID. And when COVID hit, and I was stuck at home. I was locked in my apartment, and nothing to really do. Started looking forward like to the future, trying to figure out like what was next for me. Because what I've been doing up to that point just wasn't working for me. My clients weren't seeing their best results either. So I'm like, okay, like how can I like, figure out a better system for myself, but also figure out a better way to keep my clients accountable outside of the gym. And that's where I kind of found online coaching, like long story short. Um, Worked with a few different business coaches to help me get that set up and help me get that running. And then yeah, the rest is kind of history.
It's funny to hear that you were working for $4 an hour.
Yeah.
But in complete transparency, when I started online coaching about 5 years ago, I put it out there on Instagram, got nobody. Out there on Instagram, got nobody. A couple months later, I finally got somebody on the phone and we had that conversation. And at the
Uh-huh.
end of the conversation, they were interested, which caught me off guard because I did not believe in myself in that capacity at that
Sure.
time. And
Sure.
they said, how much do you charge? And I had no idea. So I said, well, what would you be willing to pay? And they said $20. And I said, done. And so the first month I worked I probably spent like 10 hours on this one client. I was really
Right.
invested. So I was
Right.
making $2 an hour. But you're right. Like everybody's got to start somewhere and you scale
Uh,
your way up and you build
oh yeah.
confidence. And so today, where you sit, how many clients, if you can say, do you work with, and what does a week in the life look like?
Yeah, good question. I right now my roster is about at 25, so working with about 25 clients right now. Week in the life, day in the life, pretty much. I always like to spend my mornings doing deep work, like stuff to like really push the business forward. Stuff that like, no one else can really do. Is not gonna happen with any distractions. From there, it's pretty much, I mean, every day is pretty much like relatively the same. From there, kind of goes into social media, um, content creation, stuff like that. Talking to potential clients, talking to like existing clients, checking in on them. And then afternoon, evening time, I'm usually on calls from like 3 to like 9, depending on the day. Either with clients, with potential clients, with mentors, stuff like this. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much every single day.
Yeah. So I know recently you transitioned to doing this full time.
Right.
And I made that transition as well about a year and a half ago. And for me, I quickly realized that I left a 9 to 5 to essentially work 5 to 9.
Right.
And it's it's not as bad as it sounds though, because it's yours and
Mhm.
you own it. And there's some level of enjoyment in every part of the business. And maybe that's a stretch because there are things that I don't think any business
Oh
owner
yeah.
truly enjoys. But it's yours and that's special. So what led you to transition to this full time? Like what was the moment that you knew?
Yeah. So out of coming out of college, I guess I didn't finish the end of that story, but coming out of college, it was like literally this May. Like this May I graduated undergrad, University of Missouri. And I graduated, I already had a job. I had a job lined up. I don't want to say the company, but actually Mike's the company Mike works for. And I had that lined up since last summer. So like in my head, the entire year, I'm like thinking like, okay, like this is just the plan. Like this just what's gonna happen. And what ended up happening is in the spring, like this past spring, my business started like it started scaling like relatively quickly, and it got to the point where it's like, oh, like, I'm not used to this, like this kind of income. Um, and like as a college student, I'm not used to it. But then I was like, okay, like if I can do this in college, like while taking all these different courses and like, exams, all the involvement that I had in college, like it can definitely work full time. Like it would be unreasonable for it not to work full time unless I was just a bum. Like after after I graduated. So I was like, I knew it could work, and I knew eventually I would go full time. It was just a matter of when. So I had the job lined up. There was a period over the summer where I literally just spent like the 2 or 3 months working on building my business. Got into like actually like doing the job for like, I think it was like the first day, and I was like, yeah, like this is 2 months tops, and then I'm gone. And like I didn't want to quit just like off the bat. But I was like, yeah, it's not gonna work out long term. It's just not, I'm not happy. Like I don't enjoy this. And like I have a like very good option that, that I could be doing otherwise. So I gave it like a month just to like, say that I felt it out. And then after that, I started kind of planning my exit. And yeah, I mean, now I'm full time. Been full time since August 15th. And yeah, everything's going great. Every day, the difference, the contrast, while I was at the 9 to 5, every day was like it's your business. Like you're waking up at 4 to work on your business or train. Like it's one or the other. And then you're working on that until you start. And then after you get off, it's like you got to keep working, got to take calls. And it's like that until like 8 or 9 when you just like pass out because you're so exhausted. I was not looking forward to waking up like at all, like any days whatsoever. Now, and like it's complete difference. Like every day is like I literally go to bed like wishing I was waking up. Like I can't like not being able to wait until like I can wake up so I can get back to work. But yeah, I mean it's amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah. And it sounds like you invested into yourself and into your business by seeking out mentors and coaches. And was that a hard decision for you to make to invest time and money into guidance, essentially?
Yeah, I mean it's never easy, especially like financially. It's like
Mhm.
what if it doesn't work, right? Like what if you just spent all this money for nothing? There's always that question. But I think I heard a quote recently that like really summed up my overall belief on this, like investing in mentorship, is that, and of course, like there's like just getting a mentor isn't gonna like make or break. It's not gonna like be the missing piece that just like brings everything together, but it can definitely help guide you in the right direction if you don't know what you don't know, right? Um, but the thing that really propelled me forward was it was a I think it was a quote. It was, instead of investing in the S&P, invest in the SME. Like that really hit home with me because like I don't, not that I don't believe in like our economy, but I don't know any of the guys who are running like the Fortune 500 companies, but I do know myself, and like I believe in myself 1,000% more than any of the companies that I would put money in stocks in. So it's like I could either put that money in that or put that money in myself, and like I would much rather put it in myself.
That's powerful, man. I think that's an Alex Hormozy quote. Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good one. All right, so we talked about how you got to where you are right now, and I want to look back at all that time, and with that time, look through the lens of this question, which is, what is the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle? So a circumstance that you did not get to choose for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. Man, as I know, like you have a inherently like amazing answer to this because of your eye situation. I like in my life, I'll be completely transparent. I grew up in a very comfortable household. Like my parents are middle class, they're both professors. So like, not that like we were balling or anything, but I was comfortable. I was comfortable growing up. I didn't have any like close relatives die like when I was younger, like no major illnesses. Um, but if I did have to say the I guess like the reason I always had a lot of friends that like had more hardships than me. Cause like I'm very blessed to not have too many hardships, like growing up at least. And because of that, I always felt like something was wrong. Or like I was like, I recognized that privilege like enough to like not be in hardships or like not be dealing with all that. So I think not just because of that, but in general, I've always felt the need to seek out uncomfortable situations that would help me grow. Cause like I realized pretty young that like, not to say like my parents raised me soft, not to say that at all, but I was comfortable. I was comfortable as fuck like growing up. And I was realizing like that comfort, being in my comfort zone wasn't getting me anywhere. So I think I guess like it started with my fitness journey, but like I started like putting myself intentionally in situations where I would purposely be uncomfortable, like from whether it be like my fitness journey to like investing in mentors, to moving to a whole new city that I've like literally never lived in before um to quitting my job. Like, I mean, all I guess like uncomfortable things, but I think from all that, my tolerance level for discomfort the bar has raised. So
Mm,
now I can make bigger decisions and be able to trust myself.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if that answers your question. Did that answer your question?
It does, man. And I
Uh,
want to keep going down the path you were going, but before we keep moving in that direction, I want to touch on something you said. I don't even know if you realized that you said it, but you
yeah,
used the word maybe I'm just making this up. I'm second guessing myself, but people
sure,
listening could tell us.
sure.
I got this sense of like almost guilt that
Yeah.
you were so privileged and maybe some of the people around you weren't.
Uh,
And I want to share a story. It's quick from my college experience that I've never shared on the podcast, but I went to Bucknell University, a small liberal arts school in Pennsylvania. And, it was very homogenous. Let's just say everybody was like me. Everybody came from a middle class or upper middle class neighborhood. Everybody was white. There's very little diversity, and it felt like you were kind of in this bubble, removed from the world on this beautiful campus. And I transferred after my sophomore year to Rutgers University back toward where I grew up in New Jersey, and it was totally different. I'd be on the bus and I would be one of the only white people. I'd be in a class and there were 10 different races or ethnicities. And I was in this one class and the professor was trying to make a point, and they said, please raise your hand if you've ever felt like you were being watched when you went into a store, a convenience store, because they thought maybe you would shoplift. And I've never thought of that. And a
yeah,
bunch of people threw their hands up. And I was like, man, like I am privileged. Like I never had to, everybody probably looked at me and thought there's just another normal white kid. And like I never thought twice about it. And that moment in that class, I realized that like other people don't have the same privilege that I have.
yeah.
And it made me feel a sense of guilt. And so
100%.
that's a real thing, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's different levels to it, of course. So,
Yeah.
like, as a white man, like, a lot of people might not have this realization, but like, obviously, like, you have,
Yeah.
you're up here in terms of privilege, whereas as even like as a white man in a good socioeconomic status, like you're up here,
Yep.
black man in good economic status, like you're not quite, there's different levels to it, of
Yeah.
course. But yeah,
Can
yeah,
can I ask you, have you felt like you've been at a disadvantage because of that? Because of your race at any point throughout your life?
sure.
Have there been instances?
So where I grew up, like I grew up in a pretty, I mean, it was a college town, right?
Yeah.
So like it's, most of the diversity in like the town I grew up comes from the University of Missouri. Which is like it's a lot, like there's a shit ton of like of
Yeah.
diversity at the college. But like with that being said, like the there's definitely been instances. I think like wherever you live, no matter like your circumstances, you feel it 100%. Especially if you have I'm mixed by the way. Like so my dad is black, my mom is white. Especially if you have white white friends and black friends, or like, you know, you definitely feel it. You can definitely tell the difference. Um and yeah, it's definitely there. It's definitely there. I think there's always going to be those, hopefully not always, but no matter where you are or how much money your family makes or like how much money you make, like there's always going to be those, or at least right now, like those undertones that you'll definitely feel. Um, was I as affected as, you know, some other people like in my same town? You know, probably not, but you know, definitely still there. Definitely still there.
Yeah. And I think the point here is that that realization of privilege within itself can be a challenging thing to just wrestle with, no
Yeah.
matter what angle you're coming at it from.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, to go back then to the fitness portion of things and doing uncomfortable things, I mean, I would imagine you feel the same, but for me, fitness is such a beautiful parallel to life because you go into the gym, you do hard things, you stress yourself, and then you leave, you rest, you recover, and then you're better for it the next time.
Right.
And I think in life, like people get that concept in fitness, and enough people have stepped foot into a gym where they've at least tested that out. But
Right.
when it comes to how do you better yourself in maybe a more abstract way? So, from the mental standpoint, or an emotional standpoint, or professional standpoint, I don't think people seek that discomfort as often. And I would argue that if people stuck with the gym long enough and stuck with fitness long enough, that all the other areas of their life would inherently just get a little bit better because of
Yeah.
it.
No, I 100% agree. 100% agree, man. I think this is like a little bit off, like off the point.
That's
I
all
was
right.
just listening to I don't know if you've read the book, The One Thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I forget which chapter it is, but um, they talk about how discipline is like a very, like the most successful people aren't necessarily the most disciplined people. Like I would actually, you know, I would consider myself like fairly successful for like where I'm at in my life at 22 years old. But like with that being said, like I'm not, like let's just say my fitness journey, right? I would feel comfortable saying like I'm in better shape than 95, 6, 7, 8% of people. Um,
99.9.
sure, yeah, sure. Um, but even with that being said, it's like being in shape is like at this point, like I'm 5+ years into doing this like regularly and like paying attention to what I eat, making sure I hit my protein, making sure I, you know, I get my complex carbs, making sure like overall my nutrition is on point, overall my training is on point, and I'm training hard enough on a consistent basis. Like it's pretty much effortless at this point. Like that's not hard for me. Like going to the gym is just like it's just what you do. Like going for runs is just what you do at a certain point. So like there's literally zero discipline besides getting out of bed in the morning, which like for some people you like, yeah, like it takes a lot of discipline to get to that point, but it like I believe discipline like literally you only need it long enough to actually build a habit, and once that's there, like it's not like it's effortless. So I think it's the same for exercising that like as you were saying, exercising the mental muscle, the the emotional muscle, like stuff that comes to when it comes to like actually making life choices or decisions in your life or pushing the envelope as far as your life or career go. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually this morning of this recording, I woke up at 4 in the morning, got to bed late for me, which is 10 o'clock last night. So I was feeling it. And I had this moment in bed where I thought, you know what? I can do my workout tomorrow. Let me just get some extra sleep. And after 13 years for me of this fitness journey, actually 15 years, that's crazy. I've built, like you said, that habit where what overrode that thought of let me get more sleep is how uncomfortable and off the rest of my day would feel if I did not work out in the morning. But I got up and went. And to elaborate on your point also, like it's not hard for me to get to the gym. I enjoy it. And I know it's not that way for everybody, but falling in love with the process, if there's a way that somebody can fall in love with the process, I think it just makes creating that habit a million times easier.
100%, 100%. And I think this is actually, it's not a Hormozy quote, but a Hormozy concept, or a concept he illustrates really well, is that like when you're new at something, you're gonna suck at it. And then like the longer you do it, the less you'll suck at it. And by sucking at it less and actually being better at it, you will enjoy it more. It's
Mm.
like kind of in the same breath is like you only need to like get past that first curve of like not being good at it, not enjoying it. And then once you get past that, it's like, you enjoy it more because you like it, because you're better at it. And then you see results, and then you enjoy it even more because you see results. And then, before you know it, like crazy transformation. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like riding a bike. It's hard to get started when you go from a dead stop to riding for the first time. It's really hard, but once you're moving, it's easy. And you overcome that inertia, you have that momentum. Now, this podcast is going to come out around the new year, so around the beginning of 2023. And this is way off topic for what we normally talk about, but it's timely, and I'm just genuinely curious.
Oh yeah.
The gyms get crowded for a week or two after the new year each year, and then it thins out a bit. And I know people who get frustrated by that, regular gym goers who get frustrated by those new people who come in and then eventually drop off and leave. I think I see it a little bit differently, but how do you see that whole scenario? Because obviously, a lot of people who try don't end up sticking with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated because like you're really dealing with like human psychology and like human emotion here, more so than like actually like sticking with like or going to the gym. It's not about like it's not as about them getting in shape. Like if you take like if someone's gonna go to the gym for the first time or get back in the gym in the new year, like it's not really about them getting in shape as much as it is them sticking with it long enough to get in shape. But I I love to see people working on themselves like on a micro scale, but I hate to see people doing it in the wrong way. So I hate this is the thing I hate the most is when people think that like more is just better. So like if you'll get to your goal faster if you like, do 2 hours of cardio today instead of 30 minutes, right? Or like if you do a 2 hour session or like 6 or 7 days a week instead of like, 3 or 4. I hate that mentality. And I think that's the mentality that a lot of people, pretty much everyone comes in with into the new year. And they attack their diet the same way, as in like, we're going to clean out the fridge, clean out the cupboard, all broccoli, chicken, and rice. And it's not sustainable. Obviously, like we know that it's not sustainable and it doesn't stick. And I hate seeing people attack it that way. And unfortunately, I think the majority of the people that we do see in the gym those first few weeks of the year are are the people who believe that more is going to get them to where they want to go, as opposed to like inching their way in and really focusing on building, kind of like we were talking about earlier, building one habit and stacking that onto the next.
Yeah. It sounds like you and I consume a lot of the same content, read a lot of the same books. And
Yeah.
have you ever come across Simon Sinek? Do you know who that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has this interview, and there's this famous clip online somewhere on YouTube where he talks about brushing your teeth, and he talks about consistency over intensity. And he uses the example of if you brush your teeth for as hard as you can for a couple of hours, one day a year, and then don't brush your teeth for the rest of the year, your teeth fall out. You need to brush your teeth for a minute in the morning and a minute in the evening every single day. It's about dedicating yourself to that process and keeping it sustainable. And it's easy for some reason to understand that when it comes to dental hygiene, but it's a lot harder when it comes to fitness. And when I look at those two examples, we learn to brush our teeth from such a young age. I really don't think people get exposed to fitness consistently at any point throughout their life, because gym class, at least in my experience, wasn't really fitness. It was, let's play a game here or there. Let's, do the physical fitness test. But to get exposed to fitness, I don't think everybody gets that in the same way we're exposed to things like reading or dental hygiene or, how to tie your shoes. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah, I think I agree, man. I agree. I think that's a really good comparison that people don't often take into account. Like you have your teeth, hopefully you have your teeth your entire life, right? You have hopefully, you will have your body your entire life, no matter whether or not you have your teeth. But I think that's a very, very good comparison. It's like from the moment you're born to like the day you die, you have your body with you, and like, how are you going to take care of it is the question at the end of the day. But yeah,
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 it's a big question. And so for you, obviously, you have looked for some uncomfortable things. You like to do hard things to build strength and resilience. And that's part of your process. If we had to hone in on one thing specifically, whether it's in the physical sense, in the business sense, or somewhere else in life, what's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose? And why have you chosen to do that thing? And it might be the business thing. I'm not sure.
yeah. Um, I would say the hardest thing I've ever done on purpose, it probably, and this is like gonna sound like pretty like cliche, but like dieting for a photo shoot. And like a lot of people would be like, oh, like whatever, like models do it all the time. But at the time, I didn't know how like the proper way to like take myself through a diet, let alone
Mm.
like it was like 2 years ago. I didn't really know like what I was doing. So I was pretty much doing like all of the like bro concepts that like everyone, like we were talking about, everyone does on New Year's, cutting carbs, um, eating a shit ton of protein, hours of cardio, right? I think I had shin splints by the end of the process, but yeah, it was like 12 weeks of like pretty hardcore, pretty much like that for 12 weeks, drinking like 2 gallons of water a day, like pretty much like all the stuff that like I would tell someone like never do in your life is like I was doing. Like all the red flags were there. And I had shin splints. I definitely had shin splints. I was doing like probably 2 hours of cardio a day. I was going to bed like hungry. Like I couldn't fall asleep because I was so hungry.
Mhm.
And it was just like overall, like mentally, every second of the day was a challenge because it was like literally like just getting through the next bite or like the next rep in the gym and like the next, half mile on like, running. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was pretty brutal. It was pretty brutal. Um, yeah, and I left pretty like physically and mentally damaged from that.
Mm.
But, I proved to myself I could do it. And I moved on.
Yeah, two things. One, it sounds like you learned from that experience, which is
Yeah.
good, and you've integrated that into what you do for yourself and also for your clients, which is great. And the other thing is, I think it brings to light the difference between health and performance. And when it comes to something like aesthetics, dieting down for a photo shoot is not the healthiest thing in the world, and it's certainly not sustainable. And I think a lot of people see, somebody on Instagram or on a magazine or, shredded, no body fat, and just like, man, I want to look like that. That's not what that person looks like all the time. That's not necessarily healthy. That's not sustainable. That's not going to give you the best performance at your job, in your relationship, in the gym, etc. So I think there's a big difference there. And I don't think a lot of people know that.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, like the healthy body fat percentage for people to actually be at to perform to like feel good, like there is a limit. Like you get below, I mean, I don't know the exact percentage that I was at, but you get below like 10 to 12% for guys, like you're pretty much like mentally not there, like energy is not there. your training is not going to be there. You're looking at possible, issues with, your significant other, like all these different problems from getting that lean. Is like people who get that lean suffer. Like you're literally suffering to get there. So yeah, I don't think most people, like, I wouldn't want to put anyone else through that
Yeah.
unless you had a very specific goal. Like, you know, but yeah, 100%.
Yeah, when I was in college at Bucknell, I played football for a year, and then because of my eyes, I was forced to stop, and I found myself in the gym. And in the gym, I think at that point, I was missing a path. I didn't know what I wanted to do in terms of athletics or in terms of fitness or really in terms of life. And so I don't think I've shared this in detail ever on the podcast, but I definitely had disordered eating. I was weighing every single ounce of every single piece of food that I was putting into my body. I would never eat out with other people, not even my family, because I couldn't measure it. I would go to my classes, I would go to the gym, take like a bunch of caffeine pills or like green tea extract and just be on the stationary bike for hours. Like I'm talking 2, 3+ hours every day. And it was suffering. And all I cared about was being as lean as possible. And I think it took me going through that for a period of time to come to the realization that that was not what I wanted and that was not healthy, that was not sustainable. But I do think there's probably someone listening to this podcast who's in some kind of cycle like that, and to hear it from someone like yourself, someone like myself, hopefully is enough to make them think twice about it. But it's something people struggle with for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I definitely didn't know that. Wouldn't have guessed that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the reason it's crazy that you say that, because the reason that I think I was able to get through it is because there was an end in mind. I had like an end date. It's like, okay, like this day is the photo shoot, no matter freaking how I look. And it's over after that. Whereas it sounds like you were like really thinking about it as like, this is just my life.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't
And
imagine.
and you know what's crazy too about that kind of thing, and it's not even just for body image or eating or fitness, but for other things in life. Sometimes people are so tunnel visioned on
Mm,
this one thing that no matter how they feel or what other people tell them, a change doesn't happen until the time is right. And sometimes that requires a rock bottom, or sometimes that
yeah,
requires a reality check.
sure.
But to be a little bit lighter with the topic, I am curious from that photo shoot. Do you still use those pictures? Do you look back at those pictures and you're like, man, I look good. I'm happy I did
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. No, I look great, man. I look great. I use them from time to time for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So to transition a little bit, we've been talking about fitness, a lot in the gym, but you also do a little bit of running. Is that correct?
I from here and there. Um, I haven't so much since that photo shoot, since I did like get shin splints from that experience. But I do run from like maybe once a week, once every few weeks. Yeah.
Okay. So when you think of the word endurance, I'm curious what comes to mind for you, not necessarily in terms of running or fitness,
Yeah.
but just in life. If you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, like the first thing that comes to mind would have to be like running. It's like the number one endurance sport. But I think endurance is like it really, like, to me it makes me think of like just being able to handle life life, like life throwing stuff at you unexpectedly, or like
Mm.
you just being able to take whatever happens and make the most of it for as long as possible, right? So like to like really endure something, like, you're going through a hard time, like, making it through is like, be endurance. Um, but yeah, I mean, does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. And
Yeah.
it actually made me think of my application to physical therapy school.
Okay.
One of the questions was about movement and what does movement mean to you? And
Interesting.
I asked a mentor of mine, Chris Flores, who has been a guest on this podcast, and
Okay.
he sparked this idea within me. And he said that movement is life because from the moment that you're born to the second that you die, movement is the goal, right? Like you're an infant, you learn to roll and crawl and stand and walk, and then you grow and you move freely. And then at some point that movement is impaired. And then instead of running and walking, you're maybe hobbling or limping, or you're using a walker or a cane. And then eventually, day you stop moving is the day that you die. And I didn't tie that to endurance until just now. Something you said brought that back. But yeah, it's being able to just move forward, right? No matter what happens to you. And you can look at that in a physical sense, like movement, or just in a life sense, like
Yeah,
adversity.
that's powerful, man. That's very profound. That's very profound. But yeah, like 100%, 100%. I mean, like even you saying that made me think like it is I mean, endurance is like you're in life, like you shouldn't. I mean, like I'm someone who believes like nothing should be handed to you, or like nothing is gonna be handed to you, right? So like in that even sense of the word, like you have to go out there and get it, right? And there's a lot that you have to endure through that process. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's this cool piece of artwork that I've been wanting to get for a while. If my wife's listening to this, she probably would not like this piece of art in our house, but it would stay up in my office. It's the Monopoly Man, and I think
yeah,
it just says like rents due or something like that.
yeah. I love that. I love that. Is that
Yeah.
from Iconic?
Yes.
Yep, yep.
So like just that reminder, like you have to earn it, like you have to go out and get it. And to just tie this all back into one of our common threads, entrepreneurship, is like you leave that full-time job and it's all on you, right? You do really, really well, right? It's all yours. Take it. But
Yeah.
you have a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, things don't go your way, like it's all on you, right? And I kind of like to think there's no ceiling above me, but now there's also no safety net below
Yeah,
me, and
right.
it's scary at times. I don't know if you felt that.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%, man. I would say like the thing with that is that like someone, I think my dad said this to me, not probably like I want to say like 6 months ago or so. He said, "Everywhere you go, there you are." And it's like it's so like everywhere you go, there you are, and like it. I had to like sit there for a minute and just think about it because I realized like and as it sounds like very like duh, like of course there you are because it's you. Um, but it was like very it flipped that switch in terms of like how much is actually in your control. Like from the moment you wake up in the morning, it's like the minute you go to bed, it's like you have so much control over everything. Whereas like when you are in a 9 to 5, you can only control like what is right in front of you, right? And in the same sense, I guess you can still only control that, but you have a much larger, like much more leverage over your business than you do over your job necessarily. But in the same sense, it's like that is like back to like the top of doing hard things is like or intentionally putting yourself in a hard situation. It's like, yeah, like in order to like really get my business to where it needs to be or like to where I want it to be, in order to like really hit my goals, it's like, yeah, like the actions need to be taken and I'm the only one who can take the actions. Like, yeah, like I've started hiring, I started like, bringing more people on, but at the end of the day, like everywhere you go, there you are. No one else is going to lead the ship. Like no one else is going to move the business forward. And then the person that is where I'm at right now is not also going to be the same person that's at the I don't want to say the finish line, but at the next milestone. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really profound. I'm gonna have to digest that. And I'm sure people, if you're listening to this podcast, maybe rewind and listen to it again, then pause it and just think, because that's real deep. And one of the things I realized as I was contemplating leaving my job, and I would say that contemplation phase was anywhere between 4 and 6 months. I was thinking about it, And the thought became more and more frequent to the point where I just couldn't let it go. And then I
Yeah.
really considered it. And then obviously I left. But, people get fired from jobs, companies go under. And that sense of security or safety working for somebody else,
Yeah.
it's kind of false at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because at any given day, your fate at that company is not truly up to you. Somebody else can let you go. Something can happen to the company. Your position might no longer be there. And when you're working for yourself, it's all on you. And I do think you have more control. There's ownership there, and you can pivot, you can adapt, you can adjust. And just like you said, everywhere you go, there you are. And
100%.
that's power. That's really
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. No, 100%. One of the, like, I don't know if you experienced this in your business, but end of the year is not usually a great time for fitness businesses, or coaching or anything along those lines. People have the holidays coming up, right? But even with that being said, it's like, yeah, like that sucks, right? But even like in that instance, there's still so much opportunity for you to do more. Like, just because, like, you might not be getting as many clients in that time frame, is like, doesn't mean that you you have to accept that as face value, because once again, everywhere you go, there you are. You have so much control in like how much input you're putting in. And if you know your business well enough, X amount of input equals Y output, right? Even if the numbers change and the variables change a little bit, you know, you still know how to get to, exactly where you want to be, whether or not the circumstances become harder or easier because it's the new year and everyone's coming in, or it's the last month and, you're not getting as many like, interested people. It's like, you still have so much control in that. Whereas at a regular job, in my experience at least, you don't have the same leverage. Like, there's no like, you put in twice as much effort and you get more returns. Like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's always stuff to do. And like, to your point, and maybe for people listening, we should just use an example because
sure,
I don't know if people understand, but let's just say for every, you know, 10 leads you bring in through a certain source, you on average convert 5 of them to clients, let's just say, for
right,
example. So,
right,
if you want 10 more clients, you need to go find 20 more leads. And
uh-huh,
then the activities that generate those leads, and then you
exactly,
go do more of those activities. And
exactly.
that's within your control. And I love that.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Right on the nose there.
So with that being said, we've talked about a lot. We talked about fitness, entrepreneurship, your specific journey, privilege. And now we're coming toward the end of this conversation. And I end with the same question every time. There are so many different kinds of people listening to this podcast in different places of their life, going through different things. And odds are there are multiple people listening to this podcast going through something tough, whether they chose to be there or they have been placed in a circumstance that they didn't choose. They're just struggling. And right now, you'll have the opportunity to speak directly to those people who just aren't sure what to do next, where to go, who to turn to, and they're just feeling a little bit lost and maybe even discouraged.
Yeah,
If you're speaking to them right now, what would you say?
yeah. I mean, although I have had naturally a not as much resistance in my life without choosing. I have been in hard places before, for absolutely, like, no doubt about that. I think no matter who you are or like where you come from, like, that happens. Like, everyone's been between a rock and a hard place before. But every time I have been in that hard place, the one thing that gets me out is like, this is the common denominator, is like working on myself and like pouring. I tell my clients this all the time, is pouring more into myself in that time. So then, and many times when you're in that hard place, like, it's an external factor, right? A lot of times it is an external factor. And it's because you're pouring so much into other people. And I'm not a like an energy, like, you know, mojo kind of guy. But with that being said, when your cup is not full, like when you're not taking care of yourself, when you're not getting enough sleep, when you're not, you know, exercising, eating right, when you're not like practicing maybe meditation, journaling, whatever it is for you that like keeps your mind, body, and spirit like at bay, and it keeps you like, you know, feeling like happy or like even just like confident with yourself. It's like do that stuff first and then tackle whatever issues at hand or whatever overarching issues at hand. Because there is no like, in order to show up as your best self and to really get out of whatever situation you're in, like you have to first be your best self. And like, you know, it's really hard when you're not, your thought process isn't in the right place and you're not yourself, you're not really thinking sharp as you usually would, and you're making bad decisions as a result. Whereas when you like really pour into yourself, build that energy up, build the momentum up from doing that. And then, I mean, whatever you tackle next is like, you have all the confidence in the world to do so. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. There's a great quote by Dennis Healy who said, when you're in a hole, stop digging. And I think the first way to get out of a hole is oftentimes to stop digging deeper into that
Sure.
hole. And
Sure.
I think you're going to appreciate this analogy. I think I came up with this. I wrote a blog about it a few years back, and I'm really proud of it. Um, but I'm half joking, half not. But if you're familiar with the stock market at all,
Yeah.
you know, there are ups and downs. And there's
Sure.
this phrase, buy the dip. And so when a good company that has good fundamentals, good value, right? Let's say Apple, right? We know Apple's probably going to be around in 10 years and probably going to be strong. When the stock market crashes and things go south, that's when you buy Apple because
Mm.
you invest low, you get a lot of value. And then when it shoots back up, you have even
Yep.
more. And
Yep.
I think what you're saying is in our own lives, when we feel like we're low, when we're in that tough place, like that's when you invest, buy the dip in your
Yeah.
own life, you
Oh
know?
yeah. 100%. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. That was very well said. Very well said.
Thanks, man. I hope I'm the one who came up with that. But yeah, there's proof on my blog, on my site. So but with that being said, Kahlil, I really appreciate this conversation and I want people to be able to find you, consume your content, connect with you. Where's the best place for people to do that stuff?
Absolutely. Best place is find me on Instagram. It's at I am. So the letters I am Cali, CALI underscore fitness. So I'm Cali Fitness on Instagram. And yeah.
Cool. I will link that down in the description so people can just click
Awesome.
on it. And thank you so much again for this. I'm super excited to continue growing our friendship and to follow along with your business and your growth. And it's going to be good, man.
Absolutely, man. It was my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.